the Teresa Lusk Show. I am honored today to introduce you to our guest, Sheriff Skinner. Sheriff, welcome to the Teresa Lusk Show.
Thank you, Teresa. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Sheriff Skinner is a very important person in Collin County. He has been instrumental in dealing with the fentanyl issue. You know, Sheriff, that's a big deal right now. We have a border crisis. We have sex trafficking, child trafficking. We have so many things going on. This is an issue that matters more than just a county, right? It goes across state lines, nationwide, and globally. So can you talk to us a little bit about, we'll start with Collin County because this is our home.
Okay.
So talk to us a little bit about what's going on here.
Well, listen, Teresa, you're right. And it's probably one of the biggest public safety issues that we're dealing with on a daily basis. You really can't talk about Collin County without stopping for 2 seconds and making a few comments about the border, because the problems that we're experiencing here are because we have such an open border. 5,000 people crossed into the United States from Mexico today and yesterday.
Wow.
And 5,000 the day before. And last Tuesday, the 5th, was a record-setting day where 12,000 people, migrants, crossed into the United States. So you have to recognize and understand that the drug cartels, specifically the Sinaloans and the Jalisco New Generation cartels, they make money off of every single person that crosses into the United States. Each one of those people have to pay, up to $8,000 a piece to enter into the United States. So all of that is a big money-making proposition for the cartels on one end, but what it does then is it creates a lot of camouflage and gives them the ability to then push their dope into the United States up the river or up the border between the ports of entry and this type of thing, while all the border agents are tied up processing these people. So what we see happen in Collin County is just like every other county in the United States. What is happening? These cartels are very sophisticated. They're well financed. I mean, there's hundreds of billions of dollars that they make annually over drug trafficking. So what they do is when the drugs come into the United States, they're then taken and transported into major hub areas, like the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex is a hub.
Goodness.
And when those drugs come here, they're repackaged for national distribution, and they're hidden in secret compartments in cars and tractor trailers and other commercial vehicles, and then out they go. And we can talk a little bit more about it in just a little bit, but we've set up a special unit to deal with that problem here that we've been very successful with. But think about the impact that fentanyl's having on every town and village and community across the United States. It's wrecking nothing but just pure havoc and death and destruction on our communities. In Collin County, we've had a 1,280% increase in the number of fentanyl deaths just in Collin County since 2018.
Is that age? Are there a certain age brackets that are being affected more than others?
Well, surprisingly enough, it does. We see these deaths, and we call them actually fentanyl poisonings instead of an overdose, because most of the people that are dying as a result of ingesting fentanyl, they're not drug addicts. They're normal folks just like us. Okay. And what's happening is, we have this culture in the United States, this casual transference of prescription medication, right? I could tell you the story of a young 16-year-old girl who's she came home from school after soccer practice, and she had strained her back, and one of her friends gave her a pill, a Percocet, and said, "Here, take this, and your back will feel better."
Oh, goodness.
She came home and she ate supper with her parents, and then when she went up to her bedroom to study for the night, a couple hours later, her mom went up to check on her, and she was found in the same clothes, stretched out across the bed. She was dead because she had ingested a pill that had been pressed, a counterfeit Percocet pill that had been impregnated with fentanyl.
Oh my goodness.
So this is a big problem, and this is part of the way that they're using these drugs, is they're impregnating counterfeit prescription pills with fentanyl.
What's the point of that, though, Sheriff?
To raise addiction in the United States.
Oh, my goodness. This is terrible.
Yeah. We know that because we've talked to enough cartel soldiers in interviews after they've been captured who tell us that that's the business model, is to raise that addiction level. Because remember, this is fentanyl's 100 times more potent than morphine.
I've heard that.
50 times more potent than heroin.
Which, by the way, this leads me to a warning to parents. I think it's important for parents to understand that this is a real issue that needs to be talked about at the dinner table, in the car, on the way to school, wherever. What would you say to these parents? Because if we're going to bring awareness about this fentanyl issue, we've got to tell these parents who are watching, don't take it for granted. I think sometimes we think we have good kids, nothing would happen, but we have to awaken the parents to say, please be involved, please pay attention, please talk to your children. What would you say?
Well, you're absolutely right. And that is the key, because that's the only way that we're going to save lives. I mean, it's so potent. And really, it's Russian roulette, because when you get online, kids, for example, can buy fentanyl just online with a lot of different social media apps. The cartels are sophisticated in that, and they have that down. So I would say a couple things. First of all, parents ought to know absolutely what your child is using online. But even for young people, the warning should be that when you think you're buying some type of prescription pill through the black market online, it's very likely that it's impregnated with fentanyl.
That's terrible.
So it's the process starts in China, right? I mean, the precursors come into Mexico. They mix up these batches of fentanyl, and then they have these major pill pressing operations. And they press these pills. Well, there's really no quality control. If you take 10 pills, you could have 2 pills in there that have a lethal dose of fentanyl.
Let me ask you something about that, because you brought up something very interesting. As you see in politics right now, there's a lot of division between the left and the right, and China is a talking point concerning the fentanyl. We hear a lot of times that China is involved. Could you explain to us just a little bit more? Is it because they don't have any types of restrictions when it comes to production? How exactly is China being involved?
Well, during the Trump administration, there were a lot of communications and dealing with China on trying to restrict these precursors from being shipped into Mexico and so on and so forth. And I will say that even as many difficulties as we have had with the Biden administration and is talking about these issues and actually pleading with the Biden administration about the situation on the border, I say we, I mean the National Sheriff's Association. Okay. The fact of the matter is it's all really fallen on deaf ears. China, this is a conversation in and of itself. What I would say to kind of help you understand China's involvement in these, I mean, there's criminal organizations, organized criminal organizations in China, and the PRC themselves work in combination for these precursors being sent into Mexico. When these drugs are made and transported into the United States, then what happens is there's a system by which Chinese organized crime works with the drug cartels out of Mexico in order to launder money back through China to the drug cartels. That's part of it. Certainly, the other part of it is that we seize lots of bulk cash, on the open highways that are hidden in secret compartments in these cars, many times with weapons and ammunition that are bound for Mexico.
And you've been finding this out, this eloquent system that they're using, because you've been very personally involved.
Well, we are involved on many different levels in the fight against fentanyl. So this is probably as good a place as any to tell you that, when I was elected as sheriff and started in January of 2017, we didn't really have very many fentanyl deaths here, and that wasn't really on our radar. What happened was along about 2020, we started to see a really sharp spike and increase in the number of deaths. But what we knew is that we still had drug traffickers that used the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex as a hub. So I thought, well, listen, I'm a sheriff in a county in the northern part of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, so from a strategic standpoint, it's a place where really I ought to think about what can I do in order to try to interdict some of these drugs and to address the issue of human trafficking.
That's good.
So we took a page kind of out of the old playbook back in the 1990s, and we thought about criminal highway interdiction. So sheriffs have jurisdiction over long portions of highway, right? Because they have jurisdiction in the entire their entire counties.
Right.
We worked with the Texas legislature my first year as sheriff in order to try to change the law with respect to how sheriffs can work with one another.
Wow.
The law in Texas before is that sheriffs could only work with each other in a contiguous county.
Okay.
And the law's been changed.
Wow.
The Texas legislature changed it where now I can work with a sheriff anywhere in the state and have jurisdiction and work with them, and they can work with me.
Wow, that's actually wonderful.
That's right. And so because of that, what we decided to do here was I got with 7 other sheriffs surrounding the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and we set up a criminal highway interdiction unit. We took specially trained deputies, and we put them in automobiles that all look alike without the county names on them. We dressed them all in the same uniform, and we signed an agreement that allowed each sheriff to have deputies from other departments work in their county or work as a team if they needed to. And we began to search for these drug loads coming through the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. And it's been incredibly successful.
Yes.
We've seized tons, many tons of narcotics and many, many millions of dollars in bulk cash and weapons and ammunition and stolen cars. And we've captured a number of fugitives, and we've rescued 4 kidnapped children.
Wow.
I mean, it's been a major success.
That is major. I think I'm so glad you're talking about this, Sheriff, because I think it's important. I didn't realize that there was a legislation that happened for the sake of this. I mean, it takes one brave person who's willing to say, it's time to make a change. It's time to actually make things happen. And when you're dealing with legislation, I know that there's so many hoops that you have to jump through, but I love what you came up with, connecting everybody together, and that's so important. It almost makes you go, why wasn't this done sooner?
Well, I can't answer for that, but what I will tell you is, when we first came up with this concept, we worked US 75, my deputies did, and we were shocked at the amount of drugs that we took down on US 75 going northbound. So that's when I contacted Sheriff Tom Watt up in Grayson County.
Okay.
And I said, Tom, 75 runs all the way to Oklahoma. You want to work together on this? And he immediately jumped in, and working together,
Good for him.
we did this. And so then we said, well, we called Sheriff Evanson over in Rockwall, and we talked to the Hunt County Sheriff, and we talked to Bill Wayburn in Tarrant County and Fort Worth.
Yeah.
And then the sheriff in Parker County and the sheriff in Wise County. And we all came together, had a meeting at my office. And this is when we agreed to do this and to work each other. Because sheriffs, they have in Texas especially, they have a very unique relationship, sheriffs do, in this state. There's nothing that a sheriff can't ask of me that I'm not willing to go and help him with. And
that's wonderful.
it's the same, it's reciprocal.
Yes.
So because of this, we put this together, and it's been a really hard road to hoe for the guys that are working this stuff because they've been busy. We don't, you don't hear a lot about it, and the reason you don't is because I will tell you that every single week we knock down some major drug load somewhere in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex.
Wow.
And it's been that way now for a many number of years, but we don't report this in the media or put out these press releases because our opinion is we don't need to be educating the cartels.
That's so true.
So, I understand a lot of people, they want to puff their chests up and talk about all these kinds of things. But the reality is, why would we give them a lesson on what they don't need to do?
Well, I think you just educating us, educating our viewers. This is why I really thought it was important for you to be here.
Well, thanks.
I'm all about educating the community in the state and across the nation. You're already, with the information that you're sharing, you're already making us aware of things that are actually going on, which it comes from a voice of authority, which is so important to me because we're not getting it from the traditional media, right? If we watch traditional media today, Sheriff, I mean, we get very slanted, sites, regardless of what you're watching.
Pretty discouraging.
100%.
Yes.
Which is why I'm trying to do it differently.
Well,
bring
good.
some honest
That's
stories
great.
here, and from people who are actually doing it, done it, etc. There was a story that there was a man arrested back in February, I believe, of this year, 2023, with thousands of fentanyl pills.
Mm-hmm.
Had that man not been arrested, what could we have expected out of just that one bust?
Well, you certainly know that based on the amount of pills that he had, that certainly in there would have been some deaths, right? So those pills taken off of the street were pretty dramatic. Our just in the last year, we've taken down 90 pounds of fentanyl.
Wow.
Now, when you think about that, I was looking through earlier and I saw, perhaps I can see it, in my papers here, but I really saw an interesting statistic that I thought was just fascinating. But the point is that I'm making here with you is that when we first started making these seizures, we would find fentanyl in powder form. And then we started to see the pills, the M60s, the blue pills, with an M and a 60 on them. And then we would start to see larger quantities and even larger quantities. And now, and a lot of people don't think about this, but a lot of the drugs that we get that come into Texas, they come from the West. They come from Arizona. They come across the border and then the frontier. And a lot of these fentanyl pills come into the United States across the border in Arizona and then work their way up to the interstate system, and then they get on the interstate system and come east. And a lot of the seizures that we make. I have the numbers in here.
Would love for you to share that.
Okay,
Yeah,
if I can
think
find
it's
that.
important. Yeah, go ahead.
It would be pretty fascinating for you to understand the difference in the number of the amounts over the years. All right, so here you go. Think about this. In 2022, DEA had seized more than 58 million fentanyl-laced counterfeit pills, and then more than 13,300 pounds of fentanyl powder. And that was in 2022, okay? So to date, and 2023 is not even finished, so these numbers were calculated a couple months ago. So 58 million in 2022, but 73 million for 2/3 of the year in 2023. So it's a significant increase.
And what's the link there?
With 11,240 pounds of fentanyl powder. So my point is that while you look at the Border Patrol statistics in the government, which shows that the seizures are down and trending down on seizures, really it's an illusion, okay? Because what's really happening is we're seeing a sharp spike and increase in the number of fentanyl. So you might see less methamphetamine, you might see less cocaine, you certainly are seeing less marijuana, okay? But you're doggone sure seeing a heck of a sharp increase in the number of fentanyl pills.
Is it just cheaper? Is that what it is?
Of course.
Okay.
Well, it's from the cartel's perspective, you don't have to have people who grow poppies and then split them and pull the resin off and pick it into bundles and then come out of the jungle for many miles and then sell it to a broker who eventually sells it to the cartel, which makes its way to Mexico, which goes to the lab and they make the paste and make heroin and then transport it into the United States. Plus, this stuff is 50 times more powerful. So they just take the precursors in a big pot and a bunch of chemicals, and they mix it up. It's so much cheaper, so much more efficient for them, but the problem is it's so much more deadly.
Wow, that's unfortunate. Let's talk about the President Biden, his administration, and the border issues here, because, I think that a lot of times the liberal media will certainly push that, we're not being humane, et cetera, et cetera. But we see the increase. I mean, my viewers, you're listening to the statistics. I mean, this is a big deal. I think if you're a parent, please make sure you're listening to what we're talking about here. But the border issue isn't a big issue. I actually spoke to somebody yesterday, and they said that just in one of the high schools in our area, they had gotten, between 5 and 10 illegal immigrant children and it's every single day. That's just for one of the schools, right? So obviously, the proof is there in many different ways that the open border is an issue in many ways. What's happening? What is President Biden and his administration? Are they helping in any way? What is the issue here? Why is there such an open border right now?
It's a loaded question.
I'm sure.
Okay, so just let me preface it by saying I serve as the chair of government affairs for the National Sheriff's Association. I represent 3,083 sheriffs up on Capitol Hill on the legislative matters that are important to us as sheriffs in the United States. I serve on the executive committee for the National Sheriff's Association, and in that capacity, I had the opportunity to visit frequently with sheriffs all over the nation, and specifically along our border from California to the Gulf of Mexico. The impact of the migration into the United States, the unchecked and uncontrolled migration into the United States, has devastated these communities along our southern borders. And it's created a situation where citizens of those counties, tax-paying citizens in those counties, can't even get basic services, even to the point where medical care is becoming a problem in many communities because of the pull that all of these people into the United States are causing. So I mentioned to you that yesterday 5,000 illegal immigrants entered the United States and were released into the United States. So that's 5,000 a day is what we're up to. Imagine that 400,000 immigrants crossed into the United States just since October the 1st.
Wow.
All right? And I mean, that's almost 500,000 people.
Lot of people.
1.8 million for the year if this pace continues. And we know they can document that they've had about 670,000 gotaways. And so we know they're coming from over 150 countries in the United States. They're asking for asylum. And our policies are that when they step foot into the United States and ask for asylum, what we do is we give them a hearing to send them before a judge. But what happens is this administration, after being asked repeatedly over the years, has not increased the number of judges or the courts in order to expeditiously handle these cases. I will tell you that the National Sheriff's Association for 3 years has repeatedly asked for a face-to-face meeting with President Biden to talk to him about the situation on the border. And he has refused to see us. So every so often, we'll hear from another new administration official who wants to have a meeting to tell us just exactly what their newest and best plan is while people continue to stream across the border into the United States. The National Sheriff's Association has given them a definitive list of things that we would like to see happen in order to check this. But we have to create an environment, a situation that doesn't draw people from all over the world to come here. You know, I could take you, Teresa, to Arizona. Leon Wilmot is the sheriff of Yuma County, Arizona. And we could take you down there and right down to the border. It's pretty desolate, you know, with the big fence that goes across. And we can show you where they cross into the United States. And that would be where the gates are wide open, left open on this big, border fence that they have. Well, they leave the gates wide open. And if you step across the line into Mexico, for about as far as you can see passports and ID cards and foreign driver's licenses and money strewn all over the ground.
Wow.
Because they empty their pockets of all identification and money, and then they step into the United States and they claim asylum, okay? And many times give a fictitious name. So all we do is have the government, the Border Patrol, all they have is the name that they're given and those biometrics, and they give them a piece of paper for a court date in the future, and they turn them loose into the interior of the United States.
Wow.
Seems pretty dangerous to me.
Absolutely. So what is the delay there? What is the refusal to meet with the sheriffs?
Well, I don't know. People say a lot of things, right? That it's political,
right?
That the Democrats have some ulterior motive, or whatever the case may be. I don't understand it, right? I know there's hardship for people all over the world, but asylum claims should be actually looked at hard, and they should be investigated.
Sure.
When people do this, our rules, our laws are such that say that when a person is fleeing the oppression in their country, the first country that they come to, they should claim asylum.
Right.
But that's not what happens. We have people that are traveling from 150 countries all around the globe, so they can cross into the United States currently down at Eagle Pass.
Wow. Yeah.
So,
I am familiar with some of those stories. That's really, really unfortunate. I hope that we can see some more positive changes concerning this border crisis, so that, excuse me, we can see our country getting back to normal and some of these very concerning numbers going on. I want to shift a little bit to talk about your recent trip to Israel.
Yeah.
What was the purpose of that trip, and what can you tell our viewers about that?
So the Jewish Institute of National Security for America, JINSA, extended an invitation for the president of the National Sheriff's Association and 2 other sheriffs and the executive director to travel to Israel following the October 7th attacks.
Okay.
JINSA conducts a program where every year they have law enforcement officials from around the United States, but typically larger groups, to come and visit Israel, and it's a great program. This year it was much different. There were only a few of us that came because the war was ongoing.
Okay.
And when we got there, we were briefed by very high-level government officials about the situation and the attacks and all that's happened after that. During our few days in Israel, we had the opportunity to visit the Magaf, which is their border police. We spent a lot of time with the Israeli National Police. We went to Sarat, and that's the town next to, on the north east section of the Gaza Strip, right outside the Gaza Strip, that was attacked, and the police station was demolished, and so many police officers were killed there. We talked to those officers that were involved in that 24-hour gunfight, and they described what had happened in all these types of things. We traveled to the kibbutz, Be'ari kibbutz, and I'll tell you, I've seen a lot of things in my career, but it really was it was troubling. I walked through this kibbutz, and house after house, block after block, entire neighborhoods completely demolished, and houses gutted by fire, and shrapnel, marks from hand grenades and RPGs and all of this everywhere throughout the entire thing. I went to the home of Vivian Silver. She was an 84-year-old Canadian Jew who lived in the Be'ari kibbutz. She was known for her compassion with the Palestinians, because she would often pick them up and take them to hospitals inside Israel for chemotherapy and this kind of stuff. We went to her home, and they had only the night before been able to identify her remains, because she was murdered in her safe room, and then they burned her body to ash. So we did a lot of other things while we were there. We had the opportunity to visit with the IDF. We were given the opportunity to watch the 44-minute videotape that of the footage taken from GoPros off of the dead terrorists and those that they had captured. And it was hard to watch, right?
I'm certain.
I saw 158 people meet their death on that 44-minute video.
Oh my goodness.
And it was there were just horrific things that were done. And it made me, listen, I understand. I mean, the Israelis absolutely have a right to demilitarize the Gaza Strip. They're obviously a threat. I mean, they attacked them and they killed over 1,400 Israelis. And but for the Israeli National Police, it would have been a lot worse. Their little police force really did fight very valiantly, and for 8 hours until the IDF could get it together and show up. So I know that a lot of people in Israel are probably very angry right now with the IDF and the government because they really were kind of on their own.
Wow. Does Israel play a part here in the U.S. and around us, or how does it affect based on what you experienced?
Well, listen, we have a lot of discord in the United States right now because, as you've seen, I mean, there's a big concern right now with a lot of anti-Semitism, Semitic language, and these types of things at different educational institutions and on the street, and it kind of makes you scratch your head, and you have to ask yourself, listen, there are huge problems and long-standing problems in the Middle East, and I understand that, but butchering people in the manner that happened is not the answer. And so when you're upset because people are defending themselves and going after the people that murdered your citizens, it's a little confusing for me to understand. But more directly to your question, we have to be vigilant here, and we have to make sure that everyone, regardless of your nationality or your religious beliefs or anything else, that you're safe. And this is what we're focused on here. What lessons did we take away from our trip to Israel? Well, certainly from an operational standpoint, you think in terms of, my job is to keep the citizens of Collin County safe, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And so I need to be thinking in terms of we're always drilling and practicing and talking about and preparing to deal with an active shooter, for example. You saw that the Allen Police Department, that officer responded in an incredible way here in Allen when he responded to that active shooter. But imagine what it would be if it was a large group of organized people, a large group of organized active shooters at one time. So coming back, these are things that we're talking about, and we're talking about we made to adjust our TOE, our table of equipment, and how we arm ourselves and train from a small unit standpoint about what we would do in the eventuality that we met that kind of threat, because it's not an option for us not to succeed.
That's right.
If that happens, because the results are catastrophic, right?
Absolutely.
So we have to be prepared. And going to Israel really did make all of us really open our eyes and say, as well as we think we're prepared, the Israelis said they threatened to kill us, and they did, but they've also threatened to kill you as Americans. And when I look at the southern border as open as it is, only a fool would not take into consideration what's currently going on our southern border and recognize that there's a very large number of people in the United States now that we have absolutely no idea who they are.
That's right. And I believe that this is an opportunity to make a cry out to those viewers. Clearly I have a conservative viewpoints, but when it comes to these kinds of things, my friends, this is not a political thing. This is really a safety issue, which is why I invited the sheriff today to be on the show with us, so that he can inform us and educate us on different things that are going on. This is not a political thing. It's not a racism thing. I'm a Latina. I promise you, some of those people are my people crossing over. But I understand the increase of population and how it pulls on the systems of the U.S., of, you said it, medical and other resources, but it's beyond that. It's given an opportunity for these criminals to bring in drugs and get a hold of your children, get a hold of you, whether you know it or not. So, Sheriff, I really want to give you an opportunity. Is there anything else you'd like to say to our viewers as we get close to wrapping this up? Because I want to make sure that everybody is well aware of what is going on and how they can be well equipped, maybe pull down some of those falsehoods that media and social media have shaped in their mind about what this is really, which is not, but what they say it's about.
Well, listen, from my standpoint, I have to approach everything every day from a very common sense standpoint, because if you get wrapped up in the politics of it all, you can lose your path, it seems. We have to deal with the facts, and what we know the facts are is that all of the migration that you're seeing coming into the United States, all of it is manipulated by the drug cartels. We know that drugs come into the United States at the same time, and while we see the number of seizures on the border going down, we realize that up here, our numbers are actually skyrocketing on the number of seizures that we're making. Only 3 weeks ago, one of my deputies got behind a car and turned the lights on, and he ran, and there was a car chase, okay, working in another one of our counties out on Interstate 30. And as that car was weaving dangerously through traffic coming in on the highway, he got caught up in traffic, and my deputy finally got him pinned in and got out of the car and approached the driver, and the driver opened fire on him.
Oh gosh.
And he shot my deputy in the chest, and he got shrapnel from gunfire in his hand. Of course, the deputy returned fire. Ultimately, the assailant was killed, and the body armor, of course, saved our deputy.
Thank God.
We searched the vehicle, and he had 14 kilos of cocaine in the car. We're seeing a lot more dangerous conduct by the mules and the cartel operatives that we've always dealt with. Now they are prone to run. Many of them are armed with firearms now, and as we've seen a couple of weeks ago, they'll shoot at us. But it's like I said then, we're going to shoot back.
They're getting bold. This crime is getting really bold. Yeah. I think it's really unfortunate.
It's an incredibly dangerous job. It's incredibly dangerous to do this work these days. What I want to say is a couple things before we close out. First of all, it is such an honor to be able to lead brave men and women like are under my command at the Sheriff's Office. These are remarkable people. They are of every ethnicity that you can imagine, every religion. I have almost as many women as I have men.
Good for you.
These deputies and detention officers are absolutely selfless people, and the sacrifices that they make in order to keep us safe are just remarkable. And I really commend all of them, and I really appreciate the people of Collin County giving me the opportunity to lead them. Okay. The second thing that I want to do is, if you don't hear anything at all that I've said today, as a parent or a grandparent or as a young person, please listen and understand that even though we have this culture of the casual transference of prescription medication, and yes, sadly enough, we also have a culture of recreational use of dangerous drugs and narcotics, that the cartels are impregnating these with chemicals that are lethal. And we've had, over 120,000 Americans have died this year so far, and that number is about 18,000 more than it was last year. This is just a tidal wave, a tsunami of death and destruction crossing our southern border into the United States. You have to understand that these prescription pills that are pressed and tried to pass off as legitimate medication in the United States are killing people to your left and right every day. We've had a 1,280% increase in the number of deaths here in Collin County just over the last couple of years. And it's far worse in many other counties across the United States because they don't have as aggressive enforcement as we're lucky enough to have here, because we have a government, a county commissioners in Collin County that support law enforcement and give us the funding that we need in order to do this, to protect our folks. So talk to your children, talk to your grandchildren, set them down tonight and tell them and warn them. If somebody offers you a pill, you got to walk away.
That's right.
Okay? You got to walk away.
Absolutely. Sheriff, you have been such a blessing, an asset to our community, to the people really across the state, and really nationally, because this will reach many different states. And I thank you for your honorable way of leading. I know that you are a man who is honorable. You're looking out for the community. Thank you for investing yourself. Thank you for all the things that you've committed yourself to. You've, gone over the red tape really to try to make Texas safer, Collin County safer. And I pray that a lot more men and women will rise up like yourself to take this battle on. So thank you for what you're doing.
Well, thank you, Teresa. And listen, I very much appreciate you giving me the opportunity and the venue to come here and talk to people about, real things that are happening, because The last thing we want to do is to bury a child.
That's right. That's
and,
right.
And the fentanyl crisis that's ongoing in the United States, as dangerous as it is, what we have to understand is that now there's other new sources of drugs that we're only now beginning to discover, like the mixture of xylazine and other narcotics that are even 1,000 times more powerful than fentanyl. So we need to understand these issues. I thank you for giving me the opportunity to come here and to talk to you and everybody else about this.
Thank you so much. Well, there you have it, my friends. You just had a conversation with Sheriff Skinner of Collin County. And if people want to connect with you, ask you questions, anything, are they welcome to do that?
Oh my gosh. My email is sheriffskinner@collincountytx.gov. You are absolutely welcome to send me an email at any time. I'm usually pretty good. I may get probably 300 emails a day as it is,
Goodness.
but I'm always pretty good about answering every one of them. So you're always welcome, and I'm probably one of the easiest folks around to get in touch with.
There you go. Well, thank you so much, my friends, and we'll see you again soon.